Hello. This is Alisia Young, and welcome to Teach Me Freedom. This podcast is about learning how to live a freer life from authors, entrepreneurs, and experts. Those who have done it and who teach others how to do it as well, and what it feels like while applying those methods to our lives along the way. Every episode will deliver resources, anecdotes, and or reviews to support you in living a more freedom-filled life. Let's jump in. Please note the video version of this episode is available on YouTube at Teach Me Freedom. The link is also mentioned in the show notes. Enjoy. Hello, freedom fighters. I'm so excited for you to meet today's guest, Vian Treston. He is a very dear friend of mine. We've known each other for close to 20 years now, and he's going to be talking about his journey into YouTube. He has a very successful channel, and we're just going to discuss kind of how he made that happen, what led to it. But first and foremost, Vian, please introduce yourself.
So hi, my name's Vian. I'm a good friend of Alisia. We've known each other a very long time now. I have been doing YouTube for about 4 to 5 years now. It's been quite the journey. A lot of ups and downs, I'm sure we'll go into, but I don't know what else to really say. That's me.
That's wonderful. And Vian, how did we meet? How do we know each other?
We went to high school together. We lived in a little city called Pickering. And the fondest memories I can think of with Alisia and I were picking up my little sister from her school over and over, and just kind of like just going for walks, just talking. I think that's the biggest accomplishment that our friendship has been able to reach, is being able to just openly talk for hours on end. No joke. Yes. We'll literally like sit at a coffee shop for like 8 hours, 12 hours. And then we'll give it like a month or two, because we'll have to like, recover and try to get like more information or more stuff that we can talk about. But we've known each other a long time. We've seen each other's journeys, ups and downs, in the roller coaster of life. And it's really made me realize what's important to me in my life, because I only have a select few friends, and Alisia is one of them. So and when she asked me to join for this, I'm like, absolutely. Yeah, of course. Let me help.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Vian. And I really want to add, because as you were talking about that, I remember I have so many memories, because you also recently moved during the pandemic. And something I am so appreciative from you is the importance that you put on keeping in touch. So we've been doing so many voice notes, and we just make sure that we keep in touch, even though we're not able to see each other in person like we were able to prior to the pandemic. But even now that you're in another province, then that also, I really appreciate that as well. And I also want to add, Vian's been a really important part of my life, because some of the stuff that you'll hear me share, have heard me share, whether it be on this podcast or in my book, Congrats Superwoman, When You've Climbed the Mountain and Still Don't Feel Good Enough, Vian has been with me during a lot, like actually that whole journey, before that journey. And so I'm so appreciative. Vian's been a phenomenal coach when it comes to my finances, with living a minimal life, and dealing with difficult changes, like when I had relationship changes, when I had job changes, all that. He's been through all of it, and has been such a huge, phenomenal source of support. So again, thank you for being an amazing friend, and thank you for being willing to share your wisdom and your journey of getting to the point of generating a full-time income on YouTube.
Oh, thank you. That's a lot of compliments, though. You've done a lot for me throughout the years too. She's been helping me through the relationships and career and all that kind of stuff too. So it's been a mutual gain, but I'll take it. Yes, awesome. I'm great. Thank you.
I'm so impressed of what you've been able to accomplish. So please walk us through what led to it, and how did you make it happen?
So before being self-employed, I was working at typical jobs, and I was working more into the finance field, just because I found that I was getting a lot of success with that. I know that your meaning behind with freedom is financial freedom. So that was a big plus, to be able to have, you know, more disposable income so that I could try to make a living for myself. It became really important because moving out of my parents' home was a big milestone for me, but it also really hit me financially. So I'm like, oh, I got to find a job. It doesn't matter what it is. And I went through several jobs, not really falling in love with any of them, but it wasn't really a means to an end. It was more of just, you know, paying for the bills and trying to save up and potentially start a family and that kind of stuff. At one point, the crucial point where it switched over to being self-employed and starting to do YouTube and other creative stuff like that. I was in a relationship. I was at my highest paying job at the time. I thought that this could maybe not be my last job, but it's going to be a long-term job. And I'll save the details, but over the course of a weekend, the relationship that I thought was going to be my future, and then potentially the career could be the short-term future, were both ended on the same weekend. The relationship broke up, and then on Monday I go into work and found out that I lost my job, which is not the first time that's happened. I've lost jobs in the past before, and there's this kind of, anyone who's lost a job, I think they'll agree that there's this kind of surreal feeling where it's like back in high school, like if you just suddenly got to leave early, you would think, wow, this is great. What a nice day. I don't know what to do with my day though, but I'll take it. So that was definitely how I felt when I lost my job that weekend. I'm like, but more so, but I'm thinking like, what do I do with my time? And of course it was very stressful at the time. And an escape is the word I like to use, an escape that helped me kind of cope with that, the kind of change in plans for the rest of my life, was watching YouTube videos, live streams. And I just found that just hearing other people talk, it really just took me out of my world for a second and made me realize that it's not just, you know, it's bad, but there's so much more to life. And I was really grateful that that was something that was available to me. And it started making me think, I could do this. If I, you know, after I recover a bit, I could start doing this. I have my own personal twist and spin that I can do for videos and live streams and all that kind of stuff. So I started creating my channel, and I started playing a game called Splatoon, was the big focus of the channel, but various other games, and just try to be true to myself and try to be social, friendly, and welcoming, because ultimately at the end of the day, I was just trying to do what was done for me. Maybe someone was going through a hard time, maybe I could help them through it. And to be honest, the first year was kind of just a gamble. I wasn't really making much. At one point, I remember being proud and talking to my mom and telling her, "Oh yeah, I made money finally." And she's like, "Great, how much did you make, Vian?" And I'm like, $2. And she's like, "You only made $2 today." I'm like, "No, Mom, I wish I made $2 this month." She's like, "Go get a job." But I'm like, it's okay. I moved out. I'm independent. Let me make this choice. And then after a year, it moved up to like 200, 300, 400 a month. And then it slowly started becoming enough for me to sustain myself. And that's when I truly felt more free. And I've kind of come to that point now where I know it'll pay the bills. And I know that, you know, I don't have to worry about life's finances nearly as much. I can kind of make ends meet. But then it started turning into more of, how do I challenge myself? How do I keep it interesting for myself and for my viewers and my audience that I accumulated over the years? 4 or 5 years, 5, 6 years now, I've actually lost count.
Wow.
I'm still doing it. I still enjoy it. And I can't imagine going back to the like non-self-employed work, because I think it's not for everyone, but once someone's gotten a taste of self-employment and having that kind of creative control, and they found even a little success from it, then they realize, wow, there's anything I could do. Like this world's so tangible. You can change anything with it. And yeah, it's been really exciting. So yeah.
Wow. I never, I never get tired of hearing like your story, your experience. And I have a few more questions to kind of dig into the details, because something I know that I definitely struggle with is that whole taking the leap and just kind of going for it. As you know, I've tried different business ventures, and you even shared like how sometimes there's I don't remember if it's like a personality type or different people who just love to start businesses, love to start things, that beginning phase, and are like serial about it. And I felt like that really resonated with me. But I noticed that one of my biggest fears is that whole process, like during the process. Like, so my question is, how during that year before you started to make even that $2 a month, what kept you going? Because 12 months is a long time. Like, I know some people give up after 3 months, 6 months, especially if we have like other job employment opportunities. It's like, oh, this isn't working out. I don't know how much longer I can stay. So what kept you going through that?
Well, it wasn't a path that wasn't untraveled. I saw other people being successful with it. So I knew that it wasn't completely risky venture because I saw, everyone else could do it too, or some people were able to do it. Even if I wouldn't get immediate success, I knew that the ceiling would be far out of reach. If I can kind of take off, there would be a lot of reward for it. And that was one thing that I found frustrating when working at other jobs was you always have that boss, or you always have that just the politics or something. There's always someone that's going to keep you down when you know that you could shoot higher with enough effort and time and focus and things like that. And sometimes you'll just have, someone that isn't as passionate as you holding you back from your success. So I figured, well, this, if I can take it off, will be really beneficial for me because I guess it was more of a faithful thing. I was hoping that it could turn out to be one thing, but the second thing was more of just a consistent promise to myself when I had started it, and the timing. So as I said, I lost my previous job and relationship. So my plan for the next 5-10 years was kind of shifted around, and I was starting to make a new plan for myself. Had a bit of savings, which was nice, which was originally going to be for making a family, but because I knew that wasn't going to happen in the near future, I thought, well, I have enough to set me for almost a year. So if I can break even by then I can keep doing it. If not, then at least I felt like I tried. There won't be any kind of resentment for myself in the future, thinking, oh, I wish I gave it a chance. Maybe it could have turned out to be something. And I could have some fun doing it. After going through that stressful experience, I looked at it as more of just another way to escape and just kind of like to cope with it. So I guess it was the passion that kind of driven me too, but also the promise to myself that, okay, well, I'll sit this out for a year. The finances make sense. I can do it and I'll give it my all. And if I can't do it, then I can't do it. And that motivated me because I thought, well, I have a time limit. So if I don't work hard enough, then that's it. I'll have to go and get another job, and then maybe I could have multitasked it. But when I thought about that, I thought, no, there's no way I can't. I'm a very focused individual. When I do something, I have to do it 100%. So trying to do like multiple things wouldn't have worked. I found that that kept me motivated.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, that's helpful. That's helpful to know. So thank you for sharing that. And when you were actually going through, like you mentioned some details there about you knew that you had a certain amount of savings to sustain you. So that's an interesting point that I'd like to ask you a question about. But before then, I have a question about when it comes to actually starting, because there are different resources out there. Like I know now there's different courses, there's different books, for example, about social media. And if you want to go even more in depth, like YouTube and the other social media, like platforms. I guess my question is, how did you keep yourself accountable and know the pathway you were going to take? Because it's like I imagine there wasn't like a curriculum that you signed up for that tells you week 1, do this, month 1, you have to have gotten through these objectives. So how did you keep yourself accountable, and how did you know what resources to use to get you where you wanted to go?
So I think if you ask anyone that is passionate about self-employment, they'll give you roughly the same answer, that it's not knowing what the next step is. That's kind of the interesting bit. You kind of give that up, the whole, like you go to a typical job, you work at whatever company, and they say, all right, so Alisia, Vian, step 1, you do this, and you get your paycheck, and it's like a machine. And some people like that. There's nothing wrong with it. But to other people like myself, it drives me insane. After doing it so many times, I'll think, have we tried doing it a different order? And if they say no, I'll be like, well, why haven't we? Because it might be better. And when they say no again, I'll be like, oh, why can't we give it a shot? So there wasn't really, like a step-by-step game plan when it came to YouTube. There was a bit of a guideline. Again, this wasn't an untraveled path. So looking at other creators and looking at other people that were in the same industry and doing the same kind of thing, I could kind of pick and choose what I liked from each one to kind of create my own recipe, is the analogy I give people, taking their ingredients and making my own recipe and then seeing if that would work. But I'd be lying if I said that, oh yeah, I definitely know the next year. It's kind of the risk, but also excitement from it. But once you've gotten the interest in doing like self-employed work like this, even if YouTube, took a turn for the worse for me and it wasn't making ends meet, I think now I've learned a lot of skills and disciplines through this process for a few years that would be really useful in whatever else self-employed journey that I would take.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds beautiful. As you said that, it reminds me of a term that I heard somebody say, how they're unemployable. Like they know too much, they've done too much, they've changed so much, they're unemployable.
Yeah, I think I haven't experienced that yet, but I imagine going. I imagine people exist out there. But no, jokes aside, even going from self-employed and then trying to work at like just a typical day job, like a more traditional job, would be very strange. I think it would be very difficult to do that. So if it wasn't, them just not accepting me because I was too experienced or something, yes, a big YouTuber, no, we can't afford you. I don't think it's so much of that. It would just be more very tempting for me to just continue doing self-employed work. And if I tried to get back into a traditional job, it would be very hard because I'm not calling all the shots anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, especially having dealt with that, the experiences of what comes with other people having, unfortunately, sometimes fortunately, but unfortunately sometimes just having a lot of control over the direction you're going in and all of that stuff. And so, yes, I'll pull it back to the financial question because I know we love talking about finances. And I'm curious about the emotional experience of month by month by month passing by. I'm still so amazed that you kept it going, like you kept that promise to yourself. But I'm like, how did it feel day by day, and then every month that would go by, not getting anything, like, and then like I'm curious about the emotional experience as you get closer to that time. You're seeing your savings kind of start to run out, and I'm curious about what was going on in your head while that was happening.
Well, so earlier on in the year, at first you're not going to have much of an audience or anything, and you're still trying to figure out what's your message or what's your vibe, what's your brand, all that kind of stuff. But once you figure it out, once it starts clicking, and once you just start meeting a few people, for me, it gets really exciting because these are complete strangers that come to you. In layman's terms, they're saying, wow, what you just figured out, A+. That I've never seen that before. And then you're like, yes, you get it. It's amazing. Okay, I'm going to do it again because you like it, right? And then you continue doing it. It motivates you. But then going into like the later part of the year, where money started becoming very tight for me, that was one big concern, of course, because I thought, okay, what am I going to do? And surprisingly, I hate to give people false hope all the time with this, but the way it worked out was that I just communicated with my audience, which I guess would be the first people that I met in that first year. And I was just honest with them. I said that, hey, so, I'm a real person. I need money to make this living. And this is how much I'm making. I'm making at one point, I remember it was just coming up to the year mark. And I said, look, I'm making about $200. I broke down my like bare minimum requirement of like what I need to my current living, which I think was like around 1,000 or something at the time, or a little under. Really just kind of like minimizing as best I can, because if I went and said a large amount, then they would have been like, oh, well, that sounds like a great life that you're trying to shoot for. But they're more sympathetic when you're trying to like hit a smaller goal. And I was reluctant to try and monetize myself too much and try to put on ads or start asking them for donations or anything like that, because that's very common in the industry for YouTube. And I was reluctant because I didn't want to deter them from watching my stuff. That was the whole game plan. But
Yeah.
when it comes down to it, if I can't pay the bills, then I'm not going to be able to do the objective, which is entertain them, which was what I was trying to do. And then they started just kind of saying it. They said, we can help. And they started saying, and make this website. We can send donations. The website that I was using was Patreon. And more of a crowdfunding kind of thing where they can just make payments and stuff like that. And you can give them whatever perk. I'm the creator, so I could decide what I could feasibly give them. It wouldn't be a whole lot because I was already giving as much as I could, but I could give them something, if at least a thanks. And but I was still reluctant, and I still thought maybe I can make it work either way. And they started just donating to my PayPal, and they just tried finding ways to like throw money at me, because they were just being real with me to say, look, you're being real with us to say that you're tight on money. We really want to see you continue this. I was providing so much value to them that they're like, we have some disposable income. Some people may not, some people did. And they were just throwing money at me. And I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I might as well give something back. And then I made that page, and for a couple months, I still didn't break even. But then after that, I started at one point breaking even. I even remember at one point I ended up sending a message to them on Twitter, just saying like, this is the official first day that the amount of money I made today will cover the cost of living broken down today. And
Wow.
they were really happy. They were congratulating me. I was really happy. I guess the fear was there. It was definitely there. But I feel like that the saying that people say is true, that if you focus on what you're offering, like the service or product or whatever, for going back into more just self-employment in general, if you focus on that, the money will come. People will find a way to fund you. It can come a lot larger than you may think. You just got to focus on what you're giving, what kind of value you can provide people.
Thank you for being so honest, and the way you're being here, that's how you always are. You really, you're transparent, you give your heart, and you're honest, and I really appreciate like your bravery, because that's I feel like that would be so scary to like be like, hey, this is where we're at. I didn't really want to tell you this, but this is where we're at, and to continue, then this needs to be known. And to have that kind of response, you definitely found like your ride or die audience, and that confirmation that, and I know because I've watched some of your videos, but I'm so blessed to know you in real life, that it's like, yeah, that it's just fabulous to see that event turned out in that way, and that you took that leap of faith, but that it takes a lot of vulnerability as well. So like, cheers to you for stepping in and like being humble as well, and being honest, and being very considerate as well, and not taking advantage. You wouldn't take advantage of the situation anyway, but just the fact that you wouldn't do that, and people can sense that and have gotten to know you. So I think that's great to hear.
I think it goes to show that because you know me, I'm just an average person. I mean, to you, I'm a good friend, but
Yes.
I'm just an everyday guy. So anyone can do it. It's just trying to figure out what you're good at and offering that to people.
So something that I know that you've shared is a common question for you from your audience, is also a question that I have as well, of ideas. And I know I'll share with you, is one of my fears of, when I started this podcast, and when I started my YouTube channel for Eat and Live Free, is what if I cannot keep on a schedule? What if I run out of ideas? And of course it's the negative thinking, where I have to like go in and like be like, don't think that way. Think, do what you can, but don't think in that way. But still that fear of what if you just run out of ideas? So how do you combat that? How do you keep ideas flowing through? Was that ever a fear for you, or did you ever have any? And I'm so sorry, I overloaded you with tons of questions, but I know that you know basically the gist of what I'm trying to ask you.
I think a good way to answer that is to break into two parts. One is coming up with the ideas, and then two is trying to keep track of them. So the first part, you're right. I do get asked that a lot, how to come up with ideas, because to someone who might be more creatively in depth, then it just comes a little bit more natural. But to some people that might not be creative, they're more maybe analytical. They don't really know when it's going to come, if it's even going to come, and the ideas, and then how to really develop them, and even knowing what's a right idea and what's a wrong idea. Is this a bad choice or a good choice? And sometimes it's trial and error. The analogy, I love analogies, and the analogy I give people is that it's like cooking. It's like making food. Anything creative, whether it be making videos, making podcasts, making music, writing a book, anything that involves just making something from nothing. The trick, the secret is you can't actually make something from nothing. It's impossible in the universe. You always need something, but you can transform things. So the step one, to break it down to steps for me, is to get inspiration. And it's not really copying. There's a lot of taboo when it comes to copying other people. You're not trying to copy. Whatever you're trying to make, for me, it was videos and live streams, or if it's a podcast or writing a book or music or anything like that, you want to consume that kind of media, and figure out what you personally like. Don't think of what's working and what's not working yet. Focus on what you enjoy, because when it comes down to actually making it, it's going to be a lot easier if you're enjoying what you're doing. But be very critical of what it is that you find interesting. So if I'm watching your podcast or listening to your podcast, I might pick one thing that I specifically like about it. Maybe it's how you asked a question, or maybe it's how you followed up, or how you presented it, or the music that you used, just one key element. And you can write it down or just keep a mental note of it. And then go on and watch other podcasts, or listen to them, or whatnot, and make a list of all these ingredients of their recipes that you're not copying. Now you have a recipe of or a list of ingredients that makes your perfect recipe. And there's millions and billions of people out there. There's going to be people that like similar recipes to you, maybe not all the ingredients, but once they get a taste of that recipe, that key recipe, that's very easy for you to make, because again, it's all your favorite things. So it's just going to come naturally for you. They're going to get a taste of it, and they're going to, oh, I like the carrot that you put in that. I like how you steamed this one vegetable or something. And the beauty of it is going forward, and you can adjust this as you go, as you find new ingredients and change your recipe. But the beauty of it is it becomes so natural for you. You don't even have to try. You just kind of put out food, and the people that start following you, or the audience that you start building that consume whatever it is that you're making, they're going to know what you're putting in it. They're going to get used to it. So they're always going to come for that. They kind of get addicted to it. Now, in my experience, to the part two of this, in my experience, sometimes I'll have waves of creativity. I could have 1 week, or even just like several days, sometimes even just one day if I had enough coffee, where I'll have like 50 ideas, some good, some bad, but then I might only be able to act on a few of them. I only have so much manpower. If I hired someone, then sure, it could help perhaps, but still there's only so much I could do, especially if I have an overflow of ideas. And I'll just write them down. It's a very obvious answer, but if you just list off all the ideas, do the ones that you're passionate about, because they're going to be the most easiest for you to execute. But then when you have those down days where you're like, I'm having no creative ideas, you'll have a long list of ideas that you could potentially do. And you might not even do them, but sometimes you might read them and it might spark a new idea for, again, a podcast or whatever it is you end up doing. Those two strategies really have been a huge success for me when it comes to trying to come up with new ideas, and just making it easier. The whole process of going from idea to an actual thing to them enjoying it seems like it's a lot more fluid when I use that analogy.
Wow, I love that. I think that's now one of my favorite analogies. I love how you said that. Like, you're getting inspiration, and you're seeing, what is it that I really like about this? Because it's a reflection of you, in a way, of like, it's like how there's a saying that, you know, people can sometimes be drawn to each other because they're like mirroring each other or their best qualities or something that they don't know, but that person is revealing it for them or something like that. And when you said that, it reminded me of that, of how you're, and how you said that there's millions, millions, millions of people. And of course, there's going to be, it's like almost impossible to not find people who will
Yeah.
resonate with what you're doing. And so that, when you said that, it lit up a spark of inspiration in me. I know like later today I have like all these books that I want to read for Eat and Live Free for like content creation, and I bought all these books and I'm like, I don't even know where to start. And then I, as you said that, I'm like, you know what, just go with to the title that feels most interesting, or the author I really love reading their work. Read a chapter, jump, instead of like starting at the beginning, maybe jump to a chapter that is calling. And as you said, like just jot ideas. And I love how you have that kind of rainy day fund for ideas. And
Mhm.
I love how you put that together. That was very inspiring.
And I'm glad you mentioned the book too. I forgot to mention that, but I think that's an important thing to know, is that you can get that inspiration, those ingredients for your recipe, from literally anywhere. You could be going for a walk. It's the easiest is just looking at the same source media. So if you're making podcasts, just looking at other podcasts or writing a book. But you could be making podcasts and watching a movie, and suddenly an idea sparks in your head. And the more you kind of practice doing it, I think it just becomes more natural. Nowadays, if I'm watching a movie or doing anything, it's kind of working in the back of my head passively. And then when an idea does pop out and shoot to the front of my mind, I quickly jot it down, because if I can't act on it right away, I don't want to forget it. That would be a big loss. But yeah, you can definitely get inspiration from other ideas. There's no shame when it comes to copying ingredients, because the analogy kind of proves itself. Like no one, people invent recipes, but no one invented the carrot. I mean, they did a long time ago, but no one's reinventing the carrot. Like all the ingredients that we know of, you can only mix from what you got until we find out some new carrot exists, I guess.
Mhm. Or is like created as a freak human creation
Yeah.
that we
Well,
don't know.
I guess they're creative too. As long as there's an audience for it and it's not illegal, go for it.
So my next question for you is, what has really surprised you? I know that you've shared some of your experiences with growing your platform, and something that comes, actually no, I don't want to put anything out there. I don't want to like influence what your answer may be in any way, but what's been most surprising for you as you've grown your platform and grown as a person over these last 5, 6 years?
The most surprising thing. Well, one thing that was surprising, so in hindsight, it's easy for me to say that, looking back, that, oh yeah, it's a journey. Sometimes it can be obvious what the path, like what path you got to go on, and sometimes it's not so obvious. But starting off, I didn't really think of that. After, like I said, in the first year, you're kind of experimenting, and then once something kind of clicks, I think I ignorantly assumed that, oh, perfect. You just fall back into that routine of, nice, I now know the steps, step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I just rinse and repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was rudely awakened by that not being the case. Usually you'll start seeing diminishing returns if you don't change things up. So that kind of comes with the territory. That was a big surprise for me. Feeling that you've learned it all and you're kind of prepared. You're always left on the edge. You're never completely prepared, and you're still always learning. And I think it's good for people that like to learn. I love knowledge. I love figuring out new things and experimenting. So if you like that kind of thing, then I think it's good. But if I was the type of person that didn't like that, and like, no, I have to redo it all over again and rethink it. Like the old game plan doesn't work, so now I got to do a different one. When I saw that happening in the first year, it probably would have been even more of a shock to me.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't really think there's been any big surprises. I think I just kind of keep an open mind when doing this, because although other people have done what I do, similar, no one's done this exact journey that I'm taking, that I'm choosing to take. So
Yeah.
I just try to keep an open mind, see what it has to offer me. Yeah, I can't really think of anything Surprising. Have I said anything to you in the past related to YouTube that was surprising to me? Maybe.
Maybe, well, it may have been my choice of words, because I'm thinking about when you've shared, and I'm not surprised about this in any way, but you've had individuals come to you and talk to you about, like, because you're very personable and you're so easy to talk to and you're fun. You're so much fun and you're so funny. So when you've shared that, people feel comfortable talking to you about things that they're struggling with or seeking advice, that was just something that, because I don't know if that was something you set out to do. Like, I know that there are channels which are educational or give advice in their nature, but I know that your channel is about fun and excitement and escapism and Splatoon along with other things. So to me, when you shared that, I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's kind of surprising. I don't know if it came as a surprise for you, but that's kind of where that question stemmed from.
Well, to be fair, it could be desensitization. Maybe it's every day is a little bit of a surprise, and then you just kind of get used to it, and you're thinking it's not a surprise at all, but it really is. It's a different surprise every day. But yeah, no, I guess you kind of struck a chord there. At first, I didn't really, or even still now, you never completely know what like I've been saying, the game plan or the brand and like how you want to present yourself online, or in my case at least with online work. And I guess there have been a lot of situations that I wouldn't have predicted that would be what might have took me off, would have done really well. I made this one series on YouTube that really blew up my channel at one point, where I created this character named Bridget, and I would talk to her, and we would like bicker back and forth. But when I was starting that series, and that's what took off, was the bickering between her and I, this like kind of puppeteering that I did. And it did wonders for me. But going into it, that I didn't actually think that would be it. I thought these little silly puns, jokes that I was doing in my videos would be what helped the channel grow. Because the previous years of doing YouTube, it was several years, like maybe 2-3 years after it started, that Bridget thing happened. But years before, I was always getting feedback that, hey, Vian, I love your puns. I love the jokes that you make. So then going into it, I thought, I got to lean into that. That's what they like. But left some room to be experimentative, just to keep it interesting for myself. Because again, if I just do the same rinse and repeat steps, it gets a little boring. But I know that that's what would work. So I thought, and then that was the biggest surprise. I think since I started YouTube, now that I think about it, was that took off so well. And then I just adapted. You just lean into that and you think, okay, well, if that's what you like now, then I can do that too. And until, they get bored or I get bored of it. And then you keep on mixing it up until you find the next surprise.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool. I guess it speaks to that importance of what you shared about always like being open and rolling with ideas and yeah, I like how you said it's as much as it's nice to have a standard way of doing things, leaving room for trying different things or experimenting a bit.
Catches people off guard too, because once you start having the audience that continues to consume whatever it is that you're creating, and then that recipe analogy, and then you go and throw a little hot pepper in. You didn't tell them that you're going to, and they're like, ooh, what'd you throw in there? That tastes really good. You've never done that. Or maybe they'll be like, ooh, what'd you do? Oh, sorry, I accidentally dropped it in. I won't do that again. But sometimes it might actually hit, and they'll be like, that's really good. Can you do that again? And as long as you kind of live by the rule of like a majority rule, as long as you can make majority of your audience happy, you can't please everyone. If you use the recipe analogy, you might add carrots in your recipe every time, but you'll have someone that doesn't actually like your recipe for the carrots, even though you think that's what everyone likes. They actually like the broccoli that you threw in, or the egg, or whatever. So keeping that in mind, that what you think is working for everyone might not work for everyone. Some people might not like it. So mixing it up a little bit now and then kind of keeps everyone happy as best you can.
That makes sense. And then also, as you said, like also staying true to yourself. I think that's a fear that I know that I have, or some other people who I've spoken with have, is getting carried away in the analytics so much that you're like, okay, well, okay, this is what people like, or this is what's trendy, and this is what gets the views, or this is what gets people to, or this is what the top channels have. I need to do what they're doing, or I need to put some element of that, even if it's not true to them, but like trying to be experimental, but then in a way it's like clashing with who they are. So yeah, as you said that, that was just something that came to mind.
That's what I find brings about burnout, which is a phenomena with creators or any people that do anything creative and self-employed work. Being like an entrepreneur has a lot of creative work in it. And I think my theory behind burnout, just the simple concept that you suddenly don't want to do it, even if it's like making you a lot of money and it's very successful. And a year ago, you would be scolding yourself saying, what are you doing? Get back to work. And you're like, but I don't feel like it, even though everything else is checking off. I think that's usually caused by when we continuously do something that we feel we should be doing, but we don't actually want to do. So even just taking a step back and just doing something just for ourselves that are true to what we want is a kind of a preventive to prevent that burnout and getting tired of what you've worked so hard to accomplish. Gives yourself a breather. But then as a plus side, sometimes that's you actually experimenting and realizing that that's your next big break and that's your next big thing.
That's so important. Yeah, I love that you touched on self-care and taking that step back. And
especially, like I said, inspiration comes from a lot of different places.
Yeah.
So I think it's good to keep on mixing and matching, trying different things, experimenting. That's the best way to do it. I have this theory that there's ebbs and flows when it comes to being self-employed. Sometimes you hit it big and you're doing really well, and then there's also downs, and you hope to level it out because those extremes are very annoying to go through. You try not to get used to the ups so that you can prepare for those downs. But I find that the best time to experiment and try different things is during those downs. And I get really excited during those downs because during the ups, you figured out something that works. So you're going to want to keep on doing that because you have a lot of people that would like more and you would like to offer that because it's going to bring you success too. And you're enjoying it. But then eventually it's going to start having diminishing returns. It's going to stabilize. It's going to start going back down. And if you continue trying doing it and you're seeing not as much success because there's that diminished return, maybe, just people change or their interests change, or they suddenly don't like that recipe that you're making anymore. And you're going to start feeling discouraged because you're like, I haven't changed. I've been doing exactly the same thing, but the world's constantly changing around us. So we have to adapt with it. And that's the time to experiment. You experiment when you're doing really well. If Tesla right now is making all these hybrid cars and it's doing really successful, and then Elon Musk suddenly says, you know what, I'm not going to make smart cars anymore. I'm going to switch to gasoline. They're going to be like, what are you doing? Wait until we get bored of what you're doing, then go and start experimenting. There's less people that are going to criticize you. And then you'll see the big difference at that point.
I love that analogy. I love that analogy and that encouragement to when to time it, but also, I love how you also said like how the highs can be really high, the lows can be really, really low, but trying to manage yourself like so that you're not being overly like taken away when it goes high and like not overly discouraged when it goes down low, but using that low as an opportunity as well as the high. So yeah.
Yep.
My second last question for you is, what are you most looking forward to with your channel over the next few years?
Oh, that's an easy one. Now that actually, if Alisia tried to do this in the past, no one would have seen me because as of like this year, I think, or just shy of this year, I started showing my face. I was just this disembodied voice for the longest time. So
you're a cartoon character.
I was a cartoon character. Yeah, I still am in some regards, but I get to show off my face a little bit more. And the biggest reason for that was because I wanted to start meeting my audience in person. I see a lot of other people do it, and when I watch them, I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And it's just that new milestone as far as I'm concerned that I'm looking at. It's a different way to interact with my audience. I've done videos, I've done music, I may do podcasts in the future, and live streams to kind of interact on a more like live aspect, but meeting them in person, I've never tried doing. So that was a big goal for me. And I thought, well, the perfect time to show my face and to get this started, because I would want them to get used to me, would be during the pandemic that was going on, because then the temptation is not there to kind of prematurely meet them. I want them to get used to me. If they haven't seen me before, and then I suddenly showed up at some event to meet up with them, it'll be surprising to me what they look like and what they seem like and sound like or whatever, but that can't really be helped. But they're going to be just as surprised, thinking, this is some random guy. I guess this is Vian. Okay. All right. So I wanted them to get used to it. And I thought, well, perfect time is during, the pandemic, because I'm not going to be going to meet anyone and they're not going to be meeting me. So I'll give them a little bit of a tease and I'll let them see what I'm like and get them a little bit more conditioned and more used to it. Maybe I overthought it. I'm very excited for going out of this pandemic, and hopefully later this year or even next year, I can start traveling the world, and because my audience, reaches across the world. And that's been one of my biggest goals, is to be able to travel throughout my whole life. And it's nice that, I may have the opportunity to do that with my job. That's more of a selfish reason that I get to travel. But then, the unselfish would be that I think that they seem really excited to meet up with me and just take it to that next step, being more in person.
Yeah, and tighten that connection. That's really cool.
Yeah, there's only so much you can do online. Unfortunately, it's never complete compared to meeting someone in person.
That's super cool. Super cool. So my last question is, what would be your top 3 resources for individuals who are exploring what we've talked about? So it could be looking into creating a career on YouTube or another social media platform, or exploring self-employment or entrepreneurship, or just finding freedom in their life, whether it's financial, creative, emotional, just feeling more free in the life that they're living. Maybe there's resources they have no idea about. So yeah, what would be your top 3 recommendations?
First top one I suggest is this podcast. Everyone should be just listening to this. I think that'll help give you some freedom.
Thank you.
Online, I think, watching YouTube I'm biased because that's my platform of choice when it comes to creating content, but there's a lot of good how-to videos. There's people just constantly sharing. I've been trying to get into music, and there's so much information available from years ago. I'm watching videos like 2000, early 2000, 2007. So there's a lot of free information out there that I think if people look and they know what they're looking for, sometimes not knowing what to look for makes it a little bit tricky. But yeah, YouTube is a huge resource, or just online. A lot of forums and things like that, or articles can give a lot of insight on the creative aspect and just what to do for a business and things like that. But I think a big part, the last one would be a big part of trying to feel free when being self-employed and making your own thing, is feeling like you're being true to yourself. But throughout the journey, sometimes you can lose sight of who you are, and we're constantly evolving. So it's no one can blame you for it. And I think out of everyone in the world, your friends and your family know you more than anyone. So I think keeping in touch with them, contacting them often enough so that they can adapt with you and they can see the changes you're going through, but also kind of remind you and keep you grounded and remind you who you are, makes you not lose sight of who you are. And I think that allows for true freedom. If you have an idea of what you want to do and you have an idea of who you want to be, you can merge the two. And then I think that's where a lot of, that's where the success comes in, I think.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
There's probably a lot of books that you could read too, but yeah, I'm not a big reader myself. So I'm sure there's some ebooks and stuff like that, but I personally like videos, but podcasts and things like that, it's a little bit easier to consume, but online, tons of information online. And maybe even talking to other people that are in the industry too. Watching these kind of interviews and having podcasts that have guests and stuff like that, whether it's this podcast or others, because you get to hear from the experts. And a lot of the times, I think from whenever I listen to an expert, in their own field that I'm trying to learn some info, they always have this persona that it's really no big deal. And for them, it's not, because they're just a natural at it. So they're like, it's nothing. And those are the people that you want to listen carefully to, because if they're seeing success and it comes natural to them, you might learn how to make it a little bit more of an easier process for you.
Mm. Oh, that's beautiful. I love how you said that. That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for your advice. And check out the show notes. We're going to be posting Vian's information. So we'll post his channel. We'll post some of his music and what he shared. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up for today?
No, it sounds like you're going to be marketing me enough as it is. All I can say is please support my friend. She's a wonderful person. I've known her a long time. This had to happen. Come on, we're friends. And she's very passionate about what she does. So yeah, please make sure you're following this podcast so that you can stay up to date on all the podcasts coming out in the future.
Thank you so much, Vian. And thank you so much, Freedom Finders, for listening. Please feel free to reach out to Vian. If you have any questions, please subscribe to his channel, share his channel. He's hilarious and he's just so personable. Thank you again for listening. And as always, honor your time and honor your energy. Talk to you all soon. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Teach Me Freedom podcast. We hope you enjoyed it and found it beneficial. Feel free to reach out to us at teachmefreedom2020@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so yet, subscribe to the show on your favorite platform for streaming content. Feel free to comment and leave a 4 or 5 star review if you feel so inclined. Connect with you next time.